What's your take on venture capital foray into like the media business? You've seen companies like Buzzfeed and Vice and Vox. Like some of them, most of them haven't done that well. Like how do you think about VC in the media world?
It's really the media business has been a business of timing. It's sad to say, but we all looked at BuzzFeed, we looked at Vice, and so many of those businesses. And I say this as somebody who is a more traditional publisher than the New York Times. We all looked at those firms, and people were saying 5, 6, 7 years ago, "This is the future. This is the future
Yep.
of media." And I never really got it. I would be like, "How is this the future of media? I don't understand where the money is coming from," and it never penciled out for me. Now, there are firms that did very well and sold at the right time. You could look at Business Insider. The timing of that was brilliant in terms of the kind of multiple that people were willing to pay
Huffington
for it.
Post.
Huffington Post was like that. Axios actually did a great job, and I think actually has a nice business.
Or Politico before that.
That. We could debate it. I think it's a great asset, but The Athletic, which was sold to the New York Times, was sold at a healthy premium, if you will. So I think there's a big question mark as to how do you create real value in the media business? And is there some way I think people thought that they were reinventing the media business. And I think the truth is none of these businesses have actually been reinvented. By the way, this is a similar truth when it comes to the world of television and streaming. Everybody chased, this is the Netflix effect. For a long time, everyone thought that the Netflix business model was somehow this magical business model. It's a good business model, but everybody who had a great business decided to chase what was a less great business. And by the way, then turned all of their businesses into less great businesses. They did that because the market was giving them a higher multiple, those types of less great businesses, a higher multiple. In part,
you don't think they did it because they see where the world is going and they can't, keep these carriage fees from cable going on forever?
I'm not wholly convinced of that. I think that people saw the multiple on Netflix and thought, "Oh my goodness," and stopped investing in their principal product. All of these big media companies stopped investing in the principal product and started investing in the streaming business. Well, what would have happened if all their best shows, and this is a point that's not my own, I should say, I've heard, by the way, I talked to Barry Diller this morning. He made a similar point. What would have happened had they invested and put the best shows they had on linear television, right? Or had gotten together and figured out, new bundling packages and other things of that sort, and figured out a way to make, I now use YouTube TV as my bundle. That's a great interface.
Yeah, so do I. Great bundle. Yeah.
But why didn't the networks either do that themselves or demonstrably partner with a Google or YouTube to create something like that and make it really work? That happened because Google was smart and decided they were going to step into the fray. So there's lots of things like that where I'm not wholly convinced that yes, the world is going to move towards streaming as a transmission mechanism, but the actual sort of bundles and packages and how you actually get content, I think, can come in, a lot of different form factors.
Now, you've been spending also a lot of time on understanding AI, unpacking AI, and there's a lot of issues in AI with copyright.
Yes.
Walk us through some of the things that you've been looking at.
Well, as a content creator myself, I'm often thinking, okay, are the content creators going to get somehow paid in a world of AI? And what's fair use, which is effectively a legal term for taking some part of something that actually is demonstrably has a copyright to it, but using a piece of it for free, and what is actually something that you'd have to pay for. And, I think to myself, if I was going to go write a book, I might go read in the context of reporting for that book. I might obviously do interviews and things, but I might also read 40 to 100 other books, which hopefully will be in the bibliography of the book. And I might footnote from those 100 books. And maybe I will have paid for all 100 books, or maybe I will have gone to the library. But the library would have paid for the books.
Yep.
But they would have been paid for at least once. And then I would go off and write my book. And I would not pay any more to those authors than the 100 books that I read.
Yep.
Nobody ever thought, though, that there could be millions and millions of me just every day on ChatGPT. So ChatGPT hoovers up those 100 books. Effectively, even if they were to pay them once, they can then go make a bajillion more books. What should the compensation be? The other piece of this around fair use is how oftentimes, I don't know, you're a Twitter user, I think, still.
Definitely. I love it.
Oftentimes people will take the best quote from an article, and they might link to the article, but they'll take the best quote and they'll put it in the Twitter feed. Well, that Twitter feed has been used to train AI, and I'm sure that Elon Musk will continue to try to do that with his new AI, generative AI program. Well, all of that was fair use the first time, but it was a piece of copyrighted material inside another article. Now it's going to be effectively a derivative taken. And so how should that work? Who should get compensated? Should they get compensated? I was mentioning to you before we started the broadcast that Mark Benioff now owns Time Magazine. That's a remarkable archive. And if a large language model were to train on Time Magazine, not only would it get its own great writers and all the great information the Times put together, but Time was often summarizing news and picking out the best quotes and things and pieces of information, tidbits from other news publications for the last 100 years. So once a large language model were to ingest the Time Magazine archive, it would actually devalue all the other archives. Because would you need the archive of the other newspapers and magazines during that last 100 years if most of the best stuff was was obtainable this other way? So I think it raises all sorts of interesting questions. And I mentioned Barry Diller earlier. Barry Diller, who owns Meredith Publishing, one of the largest publishing companies in the country. He's been talking quite openly now about putting together a lawsuit on behalf of the publishers against the big large language models. And in this sort of world of strange bedfellows and things, OpenAI, run by Sam Altman. Sam Altman's a good friend of Barry Diller's. Sam Altman used to be on the board of Expedia, as it happens, which was one of Diller's companies. So it's just so interesting to see all the different sides of how this is all playing out. I'm, by the way, still very bullish on AI. I've been playing with it all the time. I actually, by the way, think now that Claude, I don't know if you played with Claude yet.
Yeah.
I think for writing right now, it's actually better than GPT-4.
How is this different from like Google summarizing results up top? And obviously they're crawling everything, and then you're asking it a question, or and they've been doing, obviously it's getting better with Bard, but they've been doing this for years of just like summarizing, putting the best stuff on top, trying to answer your question, if you ask a question about like something on your like, how do I fix this on my computer? You'll see the steps like in Google at the top. And obviously it's cribbing all these articles and putting it right there, but you're not clicking over to the article. And then, those articles are not making money from ads or whatever.
That's the big business model question. Is there going to be, the internet and the way Google's worked is effectively one massive footnoting system, right?
Yeah.
And we were all sort of willing to live with that model because we thought that there was a way to monetize that footnoted list. Right, you'd go off and you'd go to the source, and either the source once you hit the source, you'd either buy a subscription to the thing, or maybe there'd be advertising there, or some other way to monetize it. If there is no footnote, effectively, if there is no link back, how do you monetize it? And that, I think, from a business model perspective, is a huge, huge question. But I also look at what Google's done. I've been playing with Bard. I'm very curious to see where Bard is a year or two from now, because they should be, I think, so much farther along in this. And
now they're going to use like Gmail to also train the corpus and stuff like that. So you should start to see it accelerate pretty quickly.
But I had a friend over the other day, and I have a big bookshelf, and we were playing around with ChatGPT-4, and he said, why don't we ask it, just pick out 2 books that are on the bookshelf, ask it to do an analysis of what are the key points in the 2 books that are themed together, and write an essay about it.
Okay.
And it was shocking. Like, we picked 2 random books, and it was pretty spectacular. And I thought,
amazing.
Wow. So, you know,
How do you
I will
think,
not
like,
have a job soon.